Hello, readers. Welcome to 20 Questions with Your Favorite Author, where we ask authors important questions like, why would you agree to be on this podcast? I'm Kelly Lynn Colby, Editorial Director at Cursed Dragon Ship Publishing. Our guest this week is Charity Ayres, professor by day, wordsmith by night. Charity is a military veteran who is a coffee-bleeding teacher and professor by day, and the author of numerous novels and short stories predominantly set in fantasy or science fiction realms. When she's not scheming creative ways to insult and kill characters, she spends her time hiking with her dogs or gaming with her kid. If she's not your favorite now, she will be after. Yay! Welcome, Charity. Welcome to the podcast. I hope you have your thinking hat on. We're going to ask all the tough questions tonight.
I have coffee, so hopefully that will help with the brain.
Good. You'll be set and ready to go. Excellent. Well, I am most fascinated with the gaming with your kid. How fun is that? We love to play games with our kids. We play tabletops. Seifa plays Minecraft with them, like all kinds of fun. Even though they're adults, Minecraft's still fun. So what kind of games do you play together with yours?
A lot of times we stick with Overwatch. We have been playing the beta for Overwatch 2, so that's fun. We're only a little competitive. It's not too bad. We picked up random games when we stayed home for that lovely year that will not be named, and did some trivia. We played some Uno, which Uno I will stand by is the best way to make new enemies if you ever need it. So, I mean, it's it's lots of fun, but it's very dangerous. I also recommend.
Is it wise to make enemies when you are stuck in the house?
I know, when you're the only two in the house. Well, yeah, thankfully, my kid and I kind of have this this welcome insulting rivalry that works out well for us. We're very similar personality types. So the insults and every once in a while cursing is not too bad. But yeah, we're both kind of an adventurous type. Actually, my kid was on my esports team for League of Legends at the high school, which was lots of fun. My kid does not like listening to mom's directions when it comes to pretty much anything, including coaching. So, yeah, great bonding there. It was great.
Someday he'll have a boss and he'll thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, I get this now. I get it. Well, I'm wondering, does your kid like to read as well? Or are they like flabbergasted with mom typing all the time?
My kid does not read my stuff. Unfortunately, we've had a few discussions about that, usually with me telling him that he sucks. But predominantly, he does like fantasy. It just tends to be in a reading, which is fine. Any reading to me, I mean, reading is a personal journey for anyone. I'm happy with anything he wants to pick up. We do bond a little bit over mythology, which was kind of surprising. He fell in love with Norse mythology years ago, which was one of my favorites. Honestly, any mythology is my favorite. And then more recently has been picking up Japanese mythology and looking at that. So it's very interesting.
That's pretty cool. Mythology, because your Loki bound book, that you have Thor and Loki take on identities of FBI agents to solve crime.
Yes.
That it's so creative. Like, where did that idea come from?
It was kind of random, actually. I remember I had just finished my first novel, which took forever. And I had this idea for the trickster god as a woman. And so, of course, Loki.
This is not unheard of from the comics.
Yeah.
So totally
definitely. It's happening more and more, which is amazing. But I felt like, okay, well, if you're going to go around and you're going to make mischief and have fun, yeah, you're going to do it as a woman. Because it's just more fun that way. And with the magical powers of like a trickster. Plus, I loved the intersections of different mythologies, because you can find trickster gods in so many different cultures' mythologies, because of course it's how humanity understands the various attributes of just existence,
right?
And so I liked kind of weaving that in there and playing around with all of I called them the god lines, those power lines that exist in the the origin of our stories.
Very cool. I love that. Do you only have Norse gods in this world, or do you have other gods from other mythologies in there?
There is other. I mixed Loki with a little bit of Japanese mythology, Native American mythology, and Aztec mythology. I have other characters in there as well that kind of bleed across those lines, just finding those similar attributes. So,
and so you brought them to America also. Was that just because it's less world building? Let's face it, that is a plus. Or did you just have another reason for bringing them here?
I set the book in Norfolk, Virginia. I'm in Virginia, so that kind of, it was a very familiar area. And because I was previously military, I was in the Navy.
I was going to say, does that mean Navy? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, actually, Virginia, Hampton Roads specifically has all different branches. I mean, it's a very heavily military area for a variety. There's a lot of Air Force here. There's Marines, there's Coast Guard, there's Army, there's pretty much everything. But Norfolk is a little more Navy oriented than anything else. I mean, there's the NATO base there, but we don't talk about that. It's mostly Navy kind of going around, and I was very familiar with a lot of the crossroads, a lot of the city life, a lot of the heartbeat of that area. And so creating something that happened in that world and actually kind of visualizing my character moving through those spaces was kind of wonderful. It was interesting to be able to shift them around and really kind of identify what's going on and make just minor tweaks to different settings to make it work with what I was doing.
Make it work. It's better than creating a whole town.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I like it. So you said that you had already finished your first book, so this one was not your first book. How long did it take you to write that first one?
My very first book took me, it was 4 to 5 years to write because I didn't know what I was doing. So sitting there and trying to push my way through a novel and not having any concept of how to complete a chapter, complete a storyline, build different things, do the editing, do the proofing was insane. It was so difficult. And something that I learned along the way, and it's something that I teach at workshops when I'm doing writing, with writing sprints, with proofing and all of that, is that you can't stop. When you're doing your first novel, you can't go back. You can't make corrections. You can't fix as you go, because if you do, you will never finish. And especially anyone who has that perfectionist, controlling aspect to their personality, we
no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, no. Yeah. We fight with that so much because you're like, oh, wait, I think there was a part in the story where I did something like this, and we want to go back and find it, which just eats our time.
Right.
And you don't make progress. Instead, wherever you're at, you make a little note off in the margins, or you make a note on a different document and say, check this, when you think of it, and then you just keep going. So that first one, even though it took me, it was like 4 years, when I wrote Loki Bound, it took me less than 6 months, because at that point I knew what I was doing.
I learned so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. We like to ask because we have a lot of new writers that listen. So we want them to understand that every process is different. Yes. Some people are like, I wrote my first one in 2 weeks. I'm like, you did what? Because that's me too. I'm about 4 to 5 years for my first one too.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I feel you. So it's all different. Everyone is different.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Madcap, because I laughed on the first page, which is always, that is the thing for me, man. If you make me laugh on the first page, because it's not that easy, because I'm an editor too, right? I read so much. So if you make me laugh, you've got something there. I'm wondering if you named the first mate Jim just so you could say, damn it, Jim.
There was that, yes. It kind of came out very naturally that way. Yeah, it's...
I was just like, oh no.
Honestly, it started as a short story, that whole novel did. And there were so many little twisting, kind of jibes at stereotypes and known archetypes in literature and in television and cinema and all of that just kind of wove their way through. Believe it or not, and we talked a little bit earlier about music when you're writing.
Yes.
The Cranberries song, Zombie, was what kicked me off on that story.
Really?
Yes. I heard that song and all of a sudden I was like, ooh, if I do a short story like this, and then it eventually became a novel. And it's honestly my favorite thing that I've written. So, yeah.
That's really fun. Well, it's steampunk, but there's nanites in there too. And I'm wondering, where do you find the line between steampunk and full on science fiction? Do you think there is a line? What's the difference?
There's a line. Honestly, with the genres, and that's the thing that always gets me, and something that we talk about a lot when we're at conventions, is there isn't a clear line in anything. Just like when you go to market a book, and I've heard that question a lot, okay, well, how do I know where to market my book? How do I know where
it is a challenge? Yes.
To me, Madcap is not steampunk. It's alternative history. And it's more fantasy than it is anything else. The science fiction elements go more with the alternative history than they do with specifically steampunk. It's almost more of a tech punk than steampunk, because there's not really a lot of steam technology in there. It's that shift that happened with the timeline that has changed everything. So
that makes sense. I like alternative history.
Yeah.
I want to write alternative history. And so I have the research for it, and the books are, so I don't know, later.
Well, what alternative history were you looking at?
I had a really fascinating story because I read a story, true story. So much of this is inspired by true stories, right? Like the Cranberries song, right? That also was a true story. So things, so much art is inspired by true stories, but you want to really tell the story you want to tell, right? Or get across the theme that you want to get across. And so this one, it was I'm going to forget her name right now, who was a spy in the Civil War. And she was on the Union side. She was actually Canadian, moved down to Michigan, and then joined the Union Army. And she worked as a nurse first, right? And then she disguised herself as a man and joined the army, and then went through and was a male nurse, because that's how it worked, right? And then worked as a spy, worked as a messenger, did all these really cool things. And then she kind of disappeared. She just went into married life. And I was like, well, how cool would it be? Because it was the Civil War. I'm sure, did not have very many choices. I'm like, well, what if during the Civil War something exploded in a big mine, and now there's magic in the world, right? Let's say it released this big vein of magic at the end of the war. And so I had her, since she went north, but she's buried in Houston. How funny is that? Anyways, it's a whole thing. I'm so fascinated by her. Our brains, we don't go down rabbit holes ever. And so if instead of, going back and living a mundane, normal life, she goes and becomes a bounty hunter in Chicago. She has all the skills for it. She has all the disguises for it. And then, of course, she had to have her, secretary, right? Was a man, but he would be the front of the business because no one's going to hire a female. Mm-hmm. So he'd be the front of the business, but she's the one actually doing all the work. And then you had magic. So I had all this kind of stuff. So I have all of this research about Chicago right after the Civil War, right? What was race relations like? What were the Chinese dealing with? So I have all of this stuff, and it's so cool. But for alternative history, if you do it right, you want it to be accurate until that moment you change it.
Yep.
So I have a lot of research to do. So if you consider this alternative history, how much research did you do for Madcap before you changed it?
I did a lot of the writing first, which is what I recommend.
Okay.
Get the story down.
Do you want me just to write? Ooh, I like this.
Yes, just write it. And then go back in and look at different aspects of the timeline. Okay, because I know the time frame that was happening with the golden age of piracy. I only had to build so many things in because I just needed the stuff that specifically went with my story. Okay.
Gotcha.
When I moved on and I knew, okay, well, I'm looking at this kind of intersection in the timeline, Then I started to go back towards the beginning and I looked again, like, do I have little breadcrumbs woven in? Do I have little
Can I
bits
make
that
this
help?
work?
Yes.
Mm-hmm,
So,
mm-hmm.
but I always feel like the most essential part of it is get that story down first, because you know what a rabbit hole research is. And
Yes,
it's a
I
huge
know.
time sink on
I bought
top
a
of it.
lot of books. Yeah.
Well, and that's great because buying books is always a good idea.
Right.
But I would say if you have the idea for the story, start putting the story down. You know, if you hit a snag, like if you really hit something like you're like, okay, they need this weapon. Would this weapon exist in that time? Then you take that short little bit to research, okay, can I use this? Especially if it's something you're going to keep using.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, if it's not something that you need right then, get the story down, go back and read through and find your shifts. Because you're going to find there's not a whole lot of history that goes in right away. Okay, we're not all Eric Larson. Have you ever read any of Eric Larson's Devil in the White City? His
No.
is so interwoven of history that it's gorgeously done, but it's almost like it's not something that I could just sit down and read in a sitting. It's one of those, like, it takes like layers of history on top of it. We're not all going to take that approach. I mean, you want your story, but you want the elements of the history in it. So build your story and then add in the history.
Could do that. I like
Especially if you're excited about a story, you want to get.
Well, obviously, I was talking too much. I'm like, wait, this isn't my interview. Why am I still talking? Like, that went through my head. But you see how excited I was. I couldn't stop. I'm like, but it's so cool. I want to do it so badly.
Then do it.
I can't. I just want to make sure I get the characters right. See, that's what I'm worried about, because I've got different races going on. I've got different, and it was, you know, I have a free man who was free, always free, was never a slave. So I was trying to research his story, you know, what would his life have been like? So, and where would he have come from? You know, it turns out a few places. Like, could have come from Haiti, he could have come from Canada. There are all kinds of, or he could have been born in Chicago. It just would have been a lot harder. But so there are all kinds of, so all of that, I just want to make sure I at least get those characters authentic.
Yeah.
I can write my main character, no sweat.
Yeah.
I understand her very well. I've also lived a very traditional life, even though my brain doesn't work traditionally. So if I had had that different opportunity, who knows? Yeah. So I wonder, you know, that for me, it's like for me living an alternative life through her, and it would be fun. But for all the other characters I want, I don't know their life stories.
Well, but can you specifically, I mean, unless you're pinpointing somebody who actually lived in history, you're still the writer. You still have your wiggle room. You still have your freedom. Now you can check, again, certain details to make sure that it doesn't deviate too far away from what you want to happen. But you also have to remember there's always that anomalous aspect of history. There's always one that nobody knows about. You know, so it could be that one if you hit that point, as long as it doesn't deviate from the general setting of that historical background.
And let's face it, that's what we write about. I read something somewhere. It was like, I'm tired of precocious kids in stories. I think they were complaining about Leia in the new thing. I'm like, how can you complain about her? But whatever. You know, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but we don't write about the mundane everyday kid. That's boring. But that's not what we're writing about. You know, we write about these kids that are exceptional. We write about these people who are exceptional. So that makes sense to me. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because writing, or at least reading what's written, is an escape.
Yes.
You know, and it has to be a believable escape, because otherwise, what are we doing?
Right.
You know, we don't want to write something at somebody. They're not going to like it. It's not going to work.
No, we don't want to write people sitting down paying their bills like we all do. You know, we don't want to write.
Please, no. I don't want to think about that. That's real life stuff. No. If I pick that up in a book, that book is getting put back down and I am walking away from it, because it's like, I don't need that extra stress in my entertainment.
Exactly. It's like, I don't need it. Well, I'm wondering, when you are like just trying to entertain yourself and escape for a little while, what do you like to read?
I like to read a lot of the same stuff that I like to write. Of course, that tends to be pretty normal. I read a lot of urban fantasy, paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
I do read some romance every once in a while because, why not? I'm a huge Jane Austen fan. I love all of the, it's that soft part of me that I try to pretend doesn't exist whenever I interact with anyone else. Like, no, I'm a badass. No, I have no emotions. What are you talking about? No. And then I'm back here crying over Mr. Darcy. So, it's just, anything.
Let's face it, Jane Austen was a badass too.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. She was amazing.
Yeah.
Lately, I've been reading some romance-based books that I picked up on Kindle. I'm trying to remember the author. I cannot remember the author, and I'm on like the third book because I've been tearing through those.
That's a high recommendation there.
I know. Well, it's like, have you ever read any Genevieve Cogman?
I have not.
She is one of the ones that I always recommend to people. She wrote the Invisible Library series, which is almost a steampunk kind of fantasy mixed with vampires and dragons and technology and alternate, realities and all. I mean, it's so good.
Sounds right up my alley. Yeah.
And it's got a very Holmesian feel to it too. So you've got that kind of Sherlock approach to everything. Yeah, I went all Shakespeare. Sorry.
It's all good. He's good too.
Yeah, but her books are absolutely phenomenal. It's like don't hex and something, but it's witches and vampires and werewolves and all of this, but they don't follow the traditional tropes. And it's set in New Orleans. And I just started reading it the other day, but I've already torn through like 3 books for the series. So
You're like, I can't stop reading it.
Which one it is. Yeah, they're so good because the characters are kind of feisty.
Mm-hmm.
There's some humor. There's definitely some really heated romance in there, which is nice. I like reading that as kind of a relaxation thing, if that makes sense, because I don't want to sound insulting, but it doesn't require a lot of thought. It's just enjoying.
It's just feelings. Yeah, yes. Yeah. Sometimes just feelings are nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Especially if someone else wrote it and I didn't have to.
Yeah, it's not me proofing. Oh, this is beautiful. I love this. Yes, it's the best thing ever.
I say, Jess Astra says, witches, werewolves, and vampires in New Orleans? Oh, my. Safo says, yeah, that sounds like the French Quarter.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I'm
totally.
going to have to, I got to look.
She's like, I've got to find the author.
I've
sorry.
got it, yeah. No, because I know I have it open too, because I work out constantly, but every once in a while I just want to work out and have a book. So I'll get on a bike and I'll just read while I'm
reading while I'm biking. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So the one that I'm on right now is Witches Get Stitches.
Oh, that's great. Look at that.
And her first book is Wolf Gone Wild.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see if I can get the author for it, because they're so good. I mean, they're just nice, light reads, but just very well done. So like I said, I just kind of fell on them in Kindle, and I was so happy with it. Juliet Cross. That's
Juliet Cross.
Yeah.
There you go.
And she's got, I don't know, it looks like maybe 7 or 8 books in this series. So I'll be busy for a little while, which is nice.
Safo, put that on order in our Amazon. Can you do that? Juliet Cross. Okay, cool. Jess says the Bridgerton series is that for her.
Oh,
just a nice fluffy cotton candy books. Yeah, just something to enjoy. Mm-hmm.
I read those years ago. And so when it came on and they started putting it on, it was Netflix, right?
Yes.
I don't even remember which one. Okay. Uh-huh. I was watching it and I'm like, why is this so familiar? Like, why do I know this?
I swear I know this story.
And then I looked it up. I was like, oh, I read those books. Oh, okay.
It's fun to see things come to life.
Yes, absolutely.
So we've been talking about the things we love to read and the things you've already written. Is there anything that you're working on that you're over the moon excited about?
I am working on, I've already finished Madcap 2. So I'm working back in kind of the realm of Maggie, but I'm also working on this really great anthology with my publishing group. I had this idea for an urban fantasy set with tarot cards. So I asked my publisher, I'm like, could we do maybe an anthology? Because my thought was looking at this creator for the tarot cards. And I picture this older gentleman who he lost his family through whatever means. And he started off by painting these people. And he created the magician first. So if you know anything about tarot cards, you know, that's your first card in the major arcana. And he spent so much time with this card that he slowly brought it to life. And he'd carry it everywhere. And the magician would kind of whisper to him and tell him new ones that he could make. And he started making more and more of these cards. And then one day, the magician escaped and the old man disappeared. And so the magician has realized that the old man became a card himself. He became the 0 card. And he's trying to release the man. But in the process of doing that, he keeps releasing all of the other cards. And so they're out in the world going with their primary intention. Okay, so the Empress has her primary intention. You know, the High Priestess has her primary intention. And they're kind of interacting with humanity and doing things out in the world that are sometimes good, sometimes not so good, just with the intent of following what their directive is, what they were created for, what, you know, that underlying meaning is in them. And so the open call that we're doing for the anthology is I'm kind of inviting a bunch of different authors to write one of the cards, a story for one of the cards. And it is urban fantasy. I have already claimed a couple of the cards for myself because I wanted to, you know, build that story. And my story is wrapped around the Empress because she's one of my favorite cards. So, and of course I have the backstory too, because I'm like, guys, no. So
you've got to connect it. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this is Three Ravens Press or publishing?
Yes, Three Ravens Publishing. I have a couple of different authors who've already said, oh, yes, I want to write a story in that. So I'm very excited to see what they come up with. And I'm in the process of building the Bible and the, you know, that backstory with the creator and finishing my Empress stories so that I have those available for them to look at so that they can build off of it. And of course, the magician, one of the directives of the anthology, he has to show up somewhere in the background of each of the stories. Because again, he's trying to gather those people back, or at least make sure that they're not, you know, causing chaos. But he's also still trying to reach his goal of, you know, releasing the creator, his friend. So
funny.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I might have some writers for you.
Okay.
They're in chat right now going, that sounds awesome.
Well, once I have the Bible all set up and everything, we will have an open call set up on Three Ribbons Publishing. And anyone who wants to submit will be able to. There will be certain ones that they can't use because they're already, you know, woven through another story. But other than that, I am focusing on the major arcana to start with. But if we like where it goes, then we'll branch out even further than that and kind of play in that world a little bit more.
Awesome. Well, when you post it, send the link to me.
I will.
To me, and then I'll share it with the other authors too.
Absolutely.
Be awesome. Thanks. Yeah. That's so fun. Now that's something to be excited about.
Yes.
I like it. And I don't have to read a whole thing of books about it. I just get to explore.
Yeah, you just get to play. You pick one and play.
That's right. Well, you said that you like to exercise a lot, right? You like to stay active. And so in your bio, said you like to hike with your dogs. Is there anywhere specific you like to go? Is there like a trail?
Well, yeah, anywhere I can. I'm not that far from the beach. So, of course, I go down there when I can. There are several trails throughout the Hampton Roads area that I go to on a regular basis. anywhere that I can get like 3 or more miles in, just because I like to get lost in the trees. It's such a simple pleasure. You're just there and it's quiet and it's peaceful. And ADHD brain is not quiet.
No, yes. We'll take whatever help we can get.
The world is quiet. It's like, oh, okay, this is good. I can do this. And of course the dogs are like, yes, smells, yay, and that's all they need. They
get to sleep the rest of the time. It's not fair.
Exactly. And then they get home, they're like, okay, I'm tired, and they're just out. And it's like, all right, well, I'm glad I could help you out with that. So but yeah, there's some beautiful trails. I grew up in South Dakota. So, one of my favorite things was going to the Black Hills as a kid and wandering around in the hills and the trails and everything else. Mm-hmm. I usually ticked my dad off because I'd wander off on a trail for like 2 hours and he thought
like, where is she?
Had kidnapped me, or
a bear got you in South Dakota.
Yeah, I mean anything. So, but it was so peaceful. I knew where I was. I wasn't worried, but yeah, he was never very happy with me. So
yeah, I used to play from South Carolina. I used to play when I was little, I used to play in the swamps behind our house because same reason, right? I had to get out.
Yeah.
And then when my mom found out I was playing with alligators, she almost died. I'm like, they were babies. They're like, yeah, but moms guard their nest, I was like, well, apparently they knew I was a kid too, because nobody ever hurt me. And I have all my fingers somehow.
There are people who have dealt with chipmunks that can't say the same. So, you're ahead of the game there. You're winning.
That's right. It was fun. So besides the hiking and all of that other stuff to relieve stress and be at peace, right? That's kind of the thing that we have the hardest time with our stupid brain. What else do you like to do when you're not producing or consuming content? What are your favorite hobbies?
I'm kind of simple, Mm-hmm. I play video games, obviously. Mm-hmm. I go through random craft phases that, I find a new craft that I'm fascinated about for like 5 minutes, and then I move on to something else after I've spent way too much money on it. And I love
no idea what you're talking about.
I love cooking and baking. Most of the people that I work with kind of hate me for that. Because you can't make okay, if you want brownies, you're not going to be able to just make one brownie. I only want one brownie, but I can't just make one brownie. So
and if they sit on my counter,
and then I'll take all of them, but the one that I wanted to work. And they're always like, this food is so good. You're horrible. We hate you. And I'm like, yes,
they're eating them.
You'll all gain weight and I will look amazing by comparison. So please enjoy the goodies. Exactly. And next week I'm bringing you cupcakes. But yeah, that's a huge stress reliever for me. And most of the people that I work with realize that's something that's a decompressed thing for me because it's very methodical. Cooking and baking, I mean, it's a step-by-step process. There's a little bit of creativity, but there's not a lot of overthinking things that go into it. So for me, that's one of those that it just it's very soothing.
And you make something out of nothing.
Yeah, exactly. You really have a product. Look, I've created, look,
just
unlike books where you're like, am I done? I mean, really?
Well, it takes longer.
Yeah. It again. Why? Oh, how did I change your eye color 3/4 of the way through? What happened there? What was I thinking about? Darn that cute barista with his brown eyes that threw off my blue-eyed.
And now everyone has brown eyes. I don't know what
exactly. happened. So yeah, it's definitely a different mindset.
That's awesome. If you could write in any world that wasn't yours, which one would it be?
Oh, geez, there's so many great ones. I might go with Genevieve Cogman's because hers are very good. I like Tolkien's, of course. I mean, Tolkien, come on. I'm so mad that I didn't think of Harry Potter before J.K. Rowling did because
most of us are.
Really? Yeah, I know, because it's just of course. I mean, it's one of those series you're just like, Well, duh, of course. So,
Yeah, but let's face it, overthinker, I couldn't have done it.
Yeah, I would have been
because there's a lot of things in there going, really, that's just dumb, right? Like I couldn't have overthought. When you put it all together, it works great.
Yeah.
But me, I would be stuck in the little details going, no.
I know, like, oh, the spells are Latin. That's all you did? You didn't pull some archaic language and, recreate it, mix it with French a little bit and throw some minions in there? All right.
No, you're just like Latin dictionary.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Okay, makes sense. Yeah, I know. It's same.
I couldn't have. My brain would not have done that. So I'm very glad she did, so I could appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, but any fantasy world, I'd love to at least step in there for a day or two, just kind of play around, wiggle around and stuff. I have a short story that's coming out in the hit world setting. Yes. So I'm excited about that because I got to play in somebody else's playground, which is, it's always fun. I mean, anytime you get to kind of step in and wiggle around and, sink your toes into the sand and just kind of, that's great. I love it.
Yes. I've had a lot of Chris Kennedy people on here, so including Chris Kennedy. Yeah.
Oh, Chris can talk forever.
Oh, yes. He was funny. He got to the point, he's like, how long is this supposed to be? I'm like, dude, you're the one who keeps talking. I don't know what to tell you.
I know, you're like, well, Chris, everyone else went home a little while ago, but, just keep going. It's all right.
It's fine, man.
I've known Chris forever.
Yeah, he's awesome.
We actually kind of started around the same time. I met him at a library author event in Suffolk, Virginia.
Well, the Navy background. Ago. Yeah. With the Navy background, yeah.
Well, and he and I were the only two authors there that had fiction books. Like everyone else had history, local history and personal history and, self-help and all of and poetry. And so both Chris and I were kind of like,
and you were like,
hey, like, oh, you have science fiction? Yeah, I have fantasy. All right, well, we'll both sit over here because nobody else wants to talk to us. So, yeah. That was a long time ago.
That's awesome. I adore him. He's fun.
Yeah.
So what is the most challenging part of world building?
I don't know. Honestly, because I love world building. Like to me, when I start writing, the world is just there. I see what the interactions need to be. It's always based on something that's at least a little bit familiar and then a whole lot of unfamiliar to make it interesting. So I'm not sure for me, there's anything that's, I don't want to say that's difficult about it because it's not, it's all a process. But I enjoy it so much. It's one of my favorite parts of writing that I don't know that I find one thing more difficult than another. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm tired of making magic systems. All right.
Well, yeah, when you have to build the rules. Okay, I will give you that. The laws or rules of a world sometimes is a little bit annoying. Like, wait, does this magic work this way? Why does it not? But I have really long conversations with my kid where we do a lot of, well, what if this happened kind of approaches? Like more often than not, it falls into us discussing how to, hide a body, which we probably should not talk about. That's probably not something I should do on a regular basis with my teenager. But it becomes one of those larger discussions of, okay, well, if you have this, then what's the opposition that you need for it? Looking at that balance. So if you have a character who, not only can read minds, but can basically destroy someone's mind from a distance, what's the opposition? What's the drawback? What's the thing that's going to happen to them? What's that kickback?
It can't be that easy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so we do a lot of discussions where we look at that balance between individuals. My kid likes to do these RPG campaigns online through, I think, Discord, actually. And so any of the characters that they discuss or the world scenarios, we have long conversations about it. And I kind of poke at some of it And then, Alex comes back with a little bit more of, okay, well then what if I do this? And it works out. So yeah, rules can be difficult, finding that correct balance.
Well, if he ever wants to DM on our game, let me know. He could come guest DM. Fine with that.
He'd probably be really good at it. See? Honestly.
Yeah. He can replace me. I don't mind. No pride here. It's great.
I'll tell him. He'll love it.
It would be awesome. So we have made it to our lightning round. So these are our vitally really important questions. And our first one is, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Any.
Just give me ice cream.
Yeah, no, because that's like having a favorite book. Like, no, it depends on the day. They're all great. Yeah, no, don't ask me for my favorite, because I just put them all in front of me. I'll grab one. It'll be a beautiful thing.
A spoon for each one.
Yes. Oh, yes. Even better. Can I have all of them? That's for me. Okay.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thanks. That's awesome. There was a report on the Today Show that said something like things like ice cream, like it was specifically ice cream. They have like clickbait titles, right? And it was like the ice cream shortens your life by 15% or something. I'm like, well, then I don't need that 15%.
Yeah, it's what is it? The alcohol kills brain cells, but only the weak ones.
Right? So
it's okay.
I have too many anyways. They won't stop, so I can lose a few. It's fine.
It's worth it. It's all right.
It's worth it. Yeah. Can zombies climb?
Yes.
Ha ha ha. I will be so happy. We have a division in our fan base.
Yeah.
What is your favorite fast food restaurant?
Ooh, I'm going to have to go with Chick-fil-A. I don't eat fast food very often, but I think if I'm going to lean towards fast food, I would probably go for Chick-fil-A. Yeah.
Excellent. How do you like to cool off in the summer?
I hide in my house.
Air conditioning.
Yes. Cold showers are your friend when the heat here gets really, really bad, like the heat wave we're going through right now. Yes, I hide inside. AC is great.
That's fair. Fair answer. What is your least favorite chore around the house?
Laundry. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
And it's not the washing of the it's the folding and putting away, specifically socks. If I could never ball a pair of socks ever again in my life, I would be the happiest person. Like if I ever go into a relationship again or get married or do any of that stuff, that is that person's
their job. That's right.
Like,
it's your job now.
Like I'll do all of this. I don't care. I'll clean out the garbage cans, everything. Don't make me ball socks.
This is your job.
That's my priority. Like my needs are very low.
But specific, okay? I can tell it to you right now. That's right.
Like, look, will you ball socks? Okay, I'm sorry. You have to go away that. Because if that's
deal breaker.
Yeah.
I love it. Hey, you got to know what you know, right? Exactly. Like you got to be forthright out there.
I know my needs. It's all right.
Well, I mean, at our age, that's a good thing, right? Yeah, we need to know. It's like, I don't have time to play games. Here's my list. Where do you qualify? Where's your list? I know you have one. Come here.
Check the things that you agree with. It's like the grade school check, yes or no. Do you like me? Yes or no. Will you ball socks? Will you get me every flavor of ice cream? Do you know how to make coffee? Can you help me find my mug? Okay, so we're good.
And my keys, please. We have one of the cars now. It's a keyless. I'm like, well, I can't lose the keys now because I just keep it in my bag, except that I change bags and I don't always remember to switch it to the new one. There's no foolproof. It's just not foolproof. But awesome. All right. Now, Charity, where can fans find you and your work?
If they want my books, Amazon. Three Rivens Publishing has lots of great stuff. You can get it through different conventions. We are, honestly, I think we're hitting up almost every fantasy convention that we can possibly hit up. I know it looks like I might be at a few of them here in Virginia at the start of the new year. So come see me at that point. Barnes & Noble, I know you can get it through them. There is one of them as an audiobook on Audible. Otherwise, I'm on Instagram. I'm tentatively on TikTok. I am
Same.
on Twitter and Facebook. So anywhere and everywhere. And I love hearing from people. I love questions. One of the things that I love about being a writer is helping other writers. So I've always enjoyed that. It's something that I teach. It's something that I workshop. It's, something that I do, and it's something I'm happy to do.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you very much. Now that Charity is your new favorite writer, please make sure to review her work, and you can review us wherever it is you get your podcast. You can also subscribe on cursedragonship.com/YouTube, and you can follow us on twitch.tv/cursedragonship. And we will see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.